You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts, Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management, along with Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian and Andrew the Rock Lobster Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody, that music means it begins. It is time to commence our broadcast week here on the Options Insider Radio Network. What better way to do that than, of course, with episode 1 of the bi-weekly options extravaganza, known as colloquially, as the cool kids like to say, the old OB, aka the Option Block. My name is Mark Longo from the network, as well as, of course, from the OptionsInsider.com. Reminding you, if you like what you hear, this show, anything else we do here on the network, and there's quite a few things hitting the network these days, keep rating and reviewing. It does help all the new folks who are trading up all those options out there, help them discover the shows, and of course, keep those questions and comments coming too. We do love to hear from all of you guys and gals out there. And, you know, we decided a while ago, what better way to kick off our broadcast week than get the blood pumping, get excited, have a little bit of fun. So we started our 80s themed guessing game. It has evolved over time to incorporate more things, movies, and now, by popular request, seems like you folks are digging this as well. Now, a new wrinkle to it, 80s themed wrestler music. It's got a little bit of a bumpy start there, but now it seems like it's rolling on well. Let's keep it rolling. Let's see if you folks can guess this next legendary 80s wrestler. That's a good one. Keeps going for a bit. I think you get the gist. That's another legendary one. If you watched wrestling in the 80s, you probably know who that is. Let's go around the horn. Let's keep the rotation going. And Uncle Mike had a rocky start. Then we had the meatball. Then he kind of made a comeback last week. Uncle Mike. Let's go back out now to deep in the heart of Texas. We are joined once again by the greasiest of meatballs, Mr. Mark Sebastian from OptionPit.com, by way of Carmen Line Capital, by way of Gamma/Robin Hood Trader, by way of a little bit of 80s wrestling. So, Mr. Meatball, A, welcome back to the program, and B, can you name that legendary 80s wrestler, sir?
You know, the crazy thing is I recognize the music and I cannot put it together. It's good to be here, everybody. So I'm going to have to kind of guess. And because it's not like Andre the Giant. It's not, Hulk Hogan or the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. It's definitely not the Ultimate Warrior. So, I'm thinking it's not Roddy Piper because he came out to bagpipe music. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say Brutus the Barber Beefcake.
Interesting. A good guess. A fun wrestler, an 80s icon in and of itself. Maybe he'll make his way into the rotation one day, but not, I think, today. No, it is not Brutus the Barber Beefcake. Let's go on out now to the land of St. Charles, where we are joined once again by the uncleest of Mikes, a.k.a. Uncle Mike TOSAW. He requested the 80s wrestlers themes, kind of stumbled out of the blocks, but now he's getting his footing again. Let's see if Uncle Mike can name that 80s wrestler. Mr. Uncle Mike, welcome back to the program. A and B, do you know that tune, sir?
Great to be here as always. Off the top of my head, it's not ringing a bell, so I'm going to go with Jake the Snake Roberts.
Wow. Both of you missing on that one. That one, I actually would have accepted 2 answers for that. First off, I'll give you a hint. The best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be.
Oh, I know it now.
What is it?
Bret the Hitman
Bret
Hart.
the Hitman Hart. Yes, I also would have accepted the Hart Foundation because they had pretty much the same entrance music, so I would have taken both of those. I was a big Hart Foundation guy as a kid. I wasn't a Hitman guy until later, because Hitman, when I was a kid, everybody loved the Hitman, even all the girls. I remember all the girls in my class loving Hitman. I was like, what? The girls like him? I'm out. So I was more into the, shall we say, the Jim the Anvil kind of thing. So I liked the Hart Foundation. Demolition was my tag team, but number 2 was definitely probably the Hart Foundation, a.k.a. the Pink and Black Attack. They were good. When Jim the Anvil died, it was a sad day for all of us here on the network a few years ago. So yeah, 2 for that one. Bret the Hitman and or the Hart Foundation, as we keep on rolling right on into this show that probably is the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. Now it is time for the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
Folks often say that about me and my options hosting skills, that I am the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. And, I take that in pride. I'm very happy to hear that. So I accept that humbly and gracefully, but with a little bit of swagger like the Hitman would as well. I should probably be rocking some shades right now while I'm doing this to get in true Hitman mode. Let's see if the market's in a Hitman mode today. Started off more kind of in a happy Hart Foundation kind of mode, and then it seems like it's turning heel a little bit right now. NASDAQ's always been feeling the dark side today, off about 1.5% right now. So a rough time in tech heavy land. S&P was looking a little bit greener earlier in the session, now starting to flirt to the dark side, off a little bit over 0.1%. So no quite mad bloodletting just yet, but still a little bit coming off of the old top there. Still north of 4,200 listeners. So we got a long way to go to the dark side to even pass 4,000 again, which, remember, not too long ago, are we going to pass 4,000? Are we going to be able to close beyond 4,000? Still well above that. So don't get your knickers in a twist just yet. Only thing feeling its oats today is the Dow up about 0.2%. That means most of our vol friends coming into Showtime are taking a bit of a break. Took a bit of a hit, a bit of a crushing really on Friday. It was a fun week last week to watch the vol products. Yellen spooked the hell out of them. We had earnings doing their ableist as well. So they got it pumped up all week. Then we come into the end of the week. Terrible, just awful jobs report sends the market into the stratosphere, crushes all the vol. That's what makes the crystal ball so hard. It worked out well for me, but still just a challenging segment on the show. So coming into today's show, we had VIX cash right around a 17.5 to kick off the show. Puts it down about 1.5 points from where we were on Thursday. VVIX a little bit shy of the 110 level right now, 109.5. That's down slightly, about 0.5 point from Thursday's show. VXX feeling its oats to the dark. It's like all the juice that started coming out of VXX, it got pushed back in. Remember, Yellen spooked everything. VXX rallied north of 42. It was down around the 38 handle, and now it just got all that erosion just kicked back in again. It's down to 36 and about 40 coming into the start of the show. It's down about 3 points just from Thursday. So if you know VXX, you probably shouldn't come off that quickly, but it had a lot of pent-up juice that needed to come out. And so there you go. It came out. And VolQ down to about 20 3/4. That's down about 1 1/4 points. Let's go back out around the horn now. Let's start because I gave him a hint. He finally got it. Even though I am a little bit surprised, I'm not going to lie, that neither of you got the Hitman. Probably up there in the stratosphere of 80s wrestlers. But we'll leave that neither here nor there. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir. A, what are your enduring memories of the Hitman or the Pink and Black attack, if you have either of those? Were you a Jim the Anvil guy? I'm curious. And then B, what's catching your eye in the markets today, sir?
You know what? I had a lot of respect for the Hart Foundation. They started out with Jimmy Hart managing them, and Jim the Anvil Neidhart. A lot of respect for him. He's a big, strong, redheaded guy. So how can I not respect someone like that? Definitely a lot of respect for him. God rest Owen Hart's soul. I mean, it's sad what happened to him later on in the '90s, and it's sad what happened to Bret Hart with the Montreal screw job from Vince McMahon, but that's another story. The only gripe I have about them is that they did steal their finishing move from the Road Warriors. So once again, you got another Road Warriors knockoff tag.
You're obsessed with the Road Warriors.
Well, they did, because what the Road Warriors did is Animal would hold the guy up, and then Hawk would come off the top rope and clothesline him, and that was their finishing move. And the Hart Foundation, what they did is Jim the Anvil would hold him up, but Bret Hart would just kind of come off the ropes and do a clothesline. But aside from that, I got a lot of respect for the Hart Foundation. I thought they were really good with what they did. I guess you're right. I was a big Road Warriors fan.
What organization were the Road Warriors in? Because they weren't mostly in WWE. They were like the one that Ric Flair was in. What was that one called? I forgot.
They actually started off being independent. They were so good, they could go from NWA to AWA whenever they felt like it. And then in the late 80s, early 90s, they did come to the WWE and spent a lot of time there. Precious Paul Ellering was their manager. He was like their wrestling manager and their real life manager, to say the least. And they came to the WWF. They had to drop the name Road Warriors because they had one of the Von Erichs was the Texas Warrior, and then there was the Ultimate Warrior. So they had too many Warriors. So they just had to go by their other nickname, the Legion of Doom. But yeah, they were in the WWE. They were more 90s WWE or WWF, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what the trademark laws are, but for the most part, they made their initial mark being NWA and AWA.
We've gone down a deep rabbit hole of wrestling listeners. By the way, Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what are you watching in the market today?
Well, this is I'm bored again. It's kind of like last week in that I'm looking at this, and so early in the morning or early at the beginning of the day today, markets were dropping, and I'm thinking, okay, so I actually closed out a short call on one of my spreads. Markets rallied a little bit, and I was feeling like a genius for a little bit, but I came back down, and so I'm still slightly ahead on the closed short, and it was close enough to where I would do it anyway, just based on the numbers. It didn't really have much to do with the my gut feeling or anything like that. So we're seeing that, and what we really need right now is, I tweeted out earlier today, we need some tech support. So if all the big players out there, if you guys can just go out and just pile into like XLK or something like that, and that would really be much appreciated to get this market going. Because from the standpoint of sectors, we got financials up nearly 1%, we got energy up nearly 1%. Everything is doing their job except for, I shouldn't say everything, but I think that if we could just get people buying tech, then that would really give this market a shot in the arm. And I'm just concerned that just with, and not necessarily just today, but just with this obsession with Bitcoin, with all this crypto stuff, that all the crazies out there that would typically be buying the Apples, the Amazons, the Googles, and things like that, they're so obsessed just watching this thing in this crypto space with Elon. We can talk about Elon Musk on Saturday Night Live, but that seems to be where most of the sexy things are right now, is that it's not in the tech world, it's in the crypto space at this point in time. So I wish we'd get back to the tech area, because it would really help my SPY and SPX options that I'm trading. I'd really appreciate that. The other thing with which I'm watching, 10-year note is down slightly on the day, not a lot, but we've stayed relatively stable since we've been around this 1.5 level for the 10-year yield. And so a lot of people had predicted that we could go much higher with the yield because people were exiting bonds, but we're staying pretty stable right now. So as a covered call trader in that realm, I'm pretty excited about that. And that is what I am seeing right now.
All right, let's move on along now to the greasiest of Meatball. Mr. Meatball, A, do you have any fine memories of the Hitman and or the pink or black attack? And B, what's light up your tape in the market today, sir?
Yeah, I was a big fan of the HART Foundation. I really enjoyed them. One of my favorite moments was at the same time that No Holds Barred was coming out. It was in the Survivor Series. It was Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior, and the HART Foundation versus the $1 Million Man. I believe Vincent was in that. You had, I want to say, the Big Boss Man, and then they had Zeus. And
what's that I smell?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Zeus, kind of a forgotten bad guy, but he was a good one back in the day.
Yeah, everyone loved Tiny. That was one of my favorite moments as a kid. And yeah, Bret Hart did great. Probably made a long, short term. He took a lot of money to go to WCW. Probably regrets it because they had no writing and they buried him, and he never really did anything after he left the WWF at the time. And yeah, the Montreal Screwjob. We talk about the fact that it was a screw job, but part of the reason that whole thing went down was because Hitman was being stubborn and didn't want to give up the belt to Shawn Michaels, and that was it. So that was, it was a bit of his of making his own bed, because everyone knows Vince McMahon is not going to let any wrestler get in the way of his plans.
Indeed, sir. And what is lighting up your tape and the tape of your crazies in the pit chat today, sir?
Yeah, so let's start with Saturday Night Live. Elon Musk was terrible on it, and he went on and basically admitted Dogecoin is a scam, and Dogecoin lost, a third of its value in a couple of minutes. Continues to look soft. I think Dogecoin might be over. Tesla's down a lot today. I mean, Elon Musk is on, and all I'm watching is car commercials for other electric vehicles. It was hilarious. I was a little surprised that NBC didn't tell him that they were going to sell car ads to competitors, but they did. Then you see that kind of spill over into the market, and we have this bifurcated market where you have NASDAQ down, the economy closed trade down, and you have the reopen the economy, oil, energy. Obviously, we had that pipeline closure, which is huge, but banking is up. The airlines are actually up a little bit with oil. So the reopen trade is back on. And let's talk a little bit about Kathy Wood. Gives a really odd interview last week. Admits she took seed capital from the same guy that seeded Archegos, and is basically posting her terrible portfolio, and people are just carving it up. It's almost like they're purposely shorting it to try and force ARC lower. A trade we've been doing this week and last is long ARC puts against a market portfolio, and it's worked really well. ARC is supposed to be a diversified ETF. The implied volatility of the NASDAQ 100 is about 21. The implied volatility of ARC funds, this is an ETF carrying a lot of stocks, and its implied volatility is 50. Well, so think about that. This is 2.5 times as risky as owning the Q. So with that, what is she getting? Well, a little bit of mean reversion. It is very difficult for a money manager to outperform the market for an extended period of time, and ARC is facing that mean reversion. Lastly, let's talk volatility. Going into our Friday recording session of volatility views, I think I told you that, we'd seen the VIX correlating with the S&P 500 for, almost 3 weeks, where, what I mean by that is the S&P is going up slowly and VIX had been slowly rallying. That's never a good thing. But interestingly, Friday, that whole trade unwound and vol got smashed. Vol futures got smashed. VXX lost $5 in about 7 hours of trading. It was unbelievable the beating VXX got. And then finally, Pfizer. They had the U.S. announced they support opening up patents, but much to Pfizer's defense, Europe, cooler heads prevailed and said, no, we're not going to support that. And that's why we're starting to see Pfizer kind of recover from the Friday beatdown that was the announcement that the U.S. was willing to support releasing patents.
Germany coming to Pfizer and others' defense out there saying, yeah, we're not going to play ball with that here. I know the Rock Lobster had expressed his thoughts on that last week as well. Let's see what the markets are expressing their thoughts on through the form of trading volume today. Shall we, listeners? Let's head on out to VIX land right now. Actually, a pretty frothy day for VIX, perhaps signaling maybe something interesting could be afoot out here. 357,000 contracts on the tape right now. The ADV is 480, so we're closing in on that. Looks like it's going to be a north of the ADV day, which you've been listening to vol views lately. Those are kind of rare right now. SPY, 2.3 million contracts. The ADV, 4.13 million, so the ADV coming off a bit in SPY as well. The S, 782,000, closing in on that 1.15 million ADV. The Qs, obviously leading the dance today, 886,000 contracts. The ADV, 1.1 million. Yeah, Qs are going to get there today, definitely. IWM looking a little light, 180,000 contracts on the tape. ADV, 504,000. Not really a small cap day out there today. And in terms of the top 10, the most actives, what you folks are slinging out there, let's see what's breaking in. It cost you 206,000 contracts to break into the top 10 today. That's a fairly decent day, all things considered. We've seen a lot less lately making into the top 10. Amazon, that's 206,000 contracts for number 10. Number 9, AMD, still punching its way in there every day. 210,000 contracts for number 9. Number 8, ExxonMobil back in there. 219,000 contracts. Number 7, going back across the street to Boeing. 231,000 contracts. Number 6, Freeport McMoran. Don't see this one in the top 10 too often, but they're good for number 6 today. And 242,000 contracts. Number 5, a little FB, a.k.a. Facebook, a.k.a. 267,000 contracts. Number 4, it's NEO, 285,000 contracts. Then we kind of just gap up from 4. We go from 285,000 contracts to number 3, Palantir, 577,000 contracts. Yeah, they're doing some paper today. Number 2, look at this. Number 2, listeners, Apple. When's the last time I said that? It's been quite some time. And get this, second part of this, only 582,000 contracts on the tape right now for Apple. Apple usually does that by like 10 a.m. So that's surprising what's going on out there in Apple. Seems like the top end of the most actives today, a little bit light. Seems like we're more middle to bottom heavy today, but that still gets you Tesla, number 1. SNL, Asperger's, Doge, all this combining for some headlines and for some paper. Not a ton given Tesla's standards. Only 612,000. That's usually probably enough for number 2, but not the number 1 spot. But today it is. So Tesla taking the number 1 spot. What did you think of his quote unquote performance out there? And as I didn't watch it myself, so I can't speak to it. I've just heard the reviews, but I've seen him do a lot of his demos, and I never thought he was a fantastic presenter or public speaker. So I didn't think this was going to be up his wheelhouse. And sounds like the reviews are along that line. But what'd you think? Hit us up. You know what else is going on out there this week? A lot of big names you folks have been watching and asking about. These days, I should say, are popping off this week. From an earnings perspective, got Coinbase. They just went public not too long ago. Now we'll see the numbers. They've been trending in the other direction. Brian had an interesting trade on them going into their earnings. Check out OPR from last week if you want to check out an interesting trade on Coinbase. Poshmark, another one we don't really talk about. I'm not that familiar with it. Let's see. Monday, today, we got Marriott. Then we got Duke Energy and Roblox. I forgot Roblox out there public. Kind of the kid-oriented building / make-your-own-game platform out there. Tuesday, tomorrow, we got Palantir, hence why they're putting up so many numbers today. And EA, back to the gaming front. Wednesday, Poshmark and Bumble. Oh, heading back out. That's a twofer for the ladies there at Poshmark and Bumble. And then Thursday, you got Diz, Airbnb, Alibaba, Coinbase, and Farfetch, our old friend there of the Odd Block a lot lately. Farfetch. Let's do a couple. Let's see that are popping off. Actually, we have some results reports hot off the presses right before showtime. You can find them for yourselves. TheOptionsInsider.com. I'll break down a couple for you right now, listeners. We had Duke Energy right before the show. They were at $100.86 going into their announcement. They were pricing in 2.3%. They delivered 1.8%. So little light in the energy sector, even though they'd already had squeezed that quite a bit. Marriott, 146.69. They were pricing in 4%. They delivered 2.6%. I'm seeing a trend here. Listeners, let's see any other interesting ones that were popping off before the bell. Do we have Roblox here? I don't know if they were before the bell. They might be after the bell. So we don't have them on this list here, but you can check them out for yourselves. The season hovering at a actually fairly decent 75%. That's higher than we've seen of late out there. That means if you're buying a basket of earnings, Vol, you're getting back 75 cents on the dollar. You're still not winning, but you're not losing as badly as you were before. Let's see. Roblox is after the bell today. So I have an earnings report for them, not an earnings results report yet. That is, let's see, they're at $67.90 going into their announcement. They are pricing in $6.81. Obviously, we have no past history on them. They're kind of a new addition to the list here, so we can't compare and contrast, but that sounds kind of juicy, but then again, it's Roblox. So go figure out there. We also have Palantir. They're on the 11th. They were at $19.75 as of this report. They were pricing in $2.12. In the past, they've moved $2.09. So there you go. Not much extra juice on the tape. EA, 142 and about a half. They were pricing in $7.25. In the past, they moved $6.37. That's kind of interesting. Maybe a little bit extra juice predicted on the horizon there for EA. Got to go out to Bumble. Let's go to the twofer for the ladies here. Bumble and Poshmark. Bumble first, $57.99. That's that lady-centric dating app. Amazed it took someone that long to have a woman make the first move dating app. It seems like a no-brainer. But hey, they got it finally. $57.99. Let's see. 501 is the straddle they're pricing in. In the past, they've moved $6.31. So a little light on the juice for Bumble. Posh, obviously a newcomer. Don't have any history for them. They're at $44.06. They're pricing in $5.30. I'll leave it up to you to decide if you think that's high or low or not. As we keep on rolling, we'll do one more. Coinbase, really quickly. Coinbase is on the 13th. 263.70 is where they were trading as of this report. They were pricing in $22.09. Is it rich? No idea. We have no history. Do you think that's rich? Does it sound rich? Does it sound cheap? Do you want to buy that straddle? Hit us up. Let us know as we keep on rolling into our next segment. It is time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody. You know what time it is. Time to unleash our Eye of Sauron here. Let's kick it off in Bloom Energy. It's a name we haven't talked about in a bit. This is public utility out of San Jose. They are, they are ticker symbol BE, trading right now $20.33. Not a good day for them, off $291 or 12.5%. So that's a bit of an ouchie for Bloom Energy today. A year ago, trading $8.58. We're kind of run up against it, listeners. I won't do the full breakdown on the year that was, but suffice it to say they had a few ups and downs, climaxing here on February 8th at 42.65. Looks like that was closing. Intraday, they got a high up. It's 44.95. So nearly $45. So they had quite the run, and then very precipitous fall as well within, that was February 8th was their high. March 8th, they were trading 25.33. So they got cut almost in half. And then right now trading 20.30. So now they have been cut more than in half since their February 8th high. So interesting times out there. We've seen some craziness out there in the power and electricity situation out there in California. Let's see what our Eye of Sauron found today. 15,160 of the May 18 puts. So I said we're at a 20.33. These are $2.33 out of the money puts, listeners, going up right on the bid for 20 cents. So no playing around. They were 20 cents at 30. This guy crushed the bid 15,133 times. Stock was a little higher. It was 2083 when this print went up. So he's wearing it a little bit on these, but we shall see. By the way, if you're curious, I know you folks like your vol levels. It was an 80 vol exactly that he sold here. And there are no earnings in this cycle. The next announcement is July 27th. So I'm guessing we're coming off a post-earnings blush here, right here. Mr. Mr. Meatball, what are your thoughts on these? I don't know. I guess you can call them mildly aggressive, but not crazy, but decently sizable line in the sand puts in Bloom Energy, sir.
I mean, if you want the stock, the vols are nice and juicy. I don't hate the sale. I think that is some 80% vol. That's not terrible.
Yeah, I'm not hating this one either. I'm going to put this in the to be watched category. What do you think, listeners? 18 handle, getting an 80 vol, 20 cents. What are your thoughts on this one? Not that long to go, just till May expiration. You like this? You hate this? Are you going to be blasting out these puts as well? What are your thoughts here on these Bloom Energy puts? Let's keep on rolling now. We were just talking about Bill.com. In fact, on our last show, listeners, we paid off a trade from March 22nd where we had someone writing size almost 11,000 of the April 115 puts for 65 cents in Bill back when the stock was 153.44. As we broke down on the show last week, listeners, that guy did all right. Looks like he pocketed about $670,000 from that trade because the stock closed at 160.73. Well, it looks like our friend is probably back because it's about the same strike and about the same size. So we got another size put seller back here in Bill.com, listeners. A little bit of a different scenario, though, which is kind of interesting. He sold those last puts on the 115 strike. He got a 71 vol back when the stock was 153.44. Now someone's coming in selling the 120 puts. So a higher strike, getting a little bit more vol this time, 78.90, but getting a buck, pretty much a buck 003 on these puts. So looks like he was pretty much crushing the bid out there. 11,512 times. The stock, by the way, listeners, much lower right now. The stock is 141.76. He actually sold these when the stock was even lower. The stock was 140.32. It's a rough day for Bill.com. The stock's off 8% right now, about 12.5 bucks. So getting drubbed out there. Looks like they just had earnings because the next earnings is on August 26th. So Mr. Meatball, looks like we got someone made some decent money on our last show, paid it off on Bill.com. We were wondering if this guy was going to come back in. It looks like it probably is the same player, similar size, similar strike, but a little bit different scenario with the stock. What are your thoughts on these this time? So you like these better, worse, the same than the other ones? And what do you think about this trade in general, sir?
I mean, he won on the other ones, but pretty nicely, right?
Yeah, he pocketed about $700,000 or close to it.
Well, what I want to say is that smart customers are people to follow, and this guy is a smart customer. So I don't know anything about Bill.com, but I know that they have a customer that seems to understand where the stock is going. So by that kind of theory, I like the trade.
Yeah, past can be prologue a lot. We do know the line in the sand put pretty much in general has been working across the board for the better part of the last, ever since the election, when the market really kicked it into high gear. These obviously selling puts is going to work, and it has worked for size. Let's see if our friend can keep the party alive here, listeners. Can be 2 for 2 in Bill.com. Meanwhile, we're going to go on to, looks like a newcomer. This is New Oriental Education and Tech Group, ticker symbol EDU. This is a provider of private educational services in China. Interesting. Okay. Let's see. Ticker symbol EDU. And let's see. A year ago, this trading $14.39 right now. A year ago, it was trading 12.5 bucks. So it's had a little bit of a pop. It got all the way actually in between then and now. It had a nice run. It's been pretty much a nice trajectory up. It topped out at 1997, an excellent year. Not so much maybe for the folks in Hong Kong, but a good year nonetheless outside of that. It topped out there on February 16th, and then it turned right back around again from 1997, got crushed down to 13.79 on March 29th. Then it rallied again April 21st up to 16 and about a half bucks out there. So it's kind of been very tumultuous, very topsy-turvy of late, and then selling off right back again down to 14.38 where we find it today. So well south of its 52-week high of 1997, but north of its 52-week low of 11.25 as well. So interesting times, a bit of a topsy-turvy chart, particularly of late here in this Chinese-focused educational company. Let's see what our Eye of Sauron found out here that may be of interest. It's like it's a 6,000 lot, listeners, of the June 15s, 1-5, going up for 65 cents. This was through the offer, listeners. So that's a pretty aggressive trade. If you're wondering, they paid a 43.6 vol. They did it when the stock was a little bit higher, 14.59. And looks like there are earnings, but not in this cycle. The next earnings is coming on July 27th, listeners. So it's like a little bit of old school call paper here, Mr. Meatball, in everyone's favorite name, EDU. Yeah, these things were offered at 60 cents. They picked them up for 65 cents through the offer on the SIBO out here. So interesting stuff, Mr. Meatball. What are your thoughts on someone betting on some more upside here? Perhaps a bit of a mean reversion back to the middle here in EDU, sir.
Yeah, this is a pretty aggressive play. And clearly this guy thinks this is going significantly higher in the near future. So this is 100% one to be watched because this is pretty overtly bullish.
You know who else is one to watch? It's Uncle Mike. So let's do just that. It is time for the strategy block.
It's time to dispense options, wit, wisdom, and education. It's time for the strategy block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the strategy block, the portion of the show where Uncle Mike holds court. Uncle Mike, I saved you about 15 minutes, just enough time to regale our audience with why the pink and black attack, let alone demolition, why both of them were far superior to your beloved Road Warriors, sir.
Oh my gosh. Well, I guess they are superior because both the Road Warriors are dead now. So I guess with that, I'm not sure if the demolition is still alive, but
they're alive. They're up there, but they're alive. Yeah.
Got it.
And the Hitman's still kicking.
Yeah, so I guess from that standpoint, they won the count-out battle from there.
It's a very morbid way to win, but yes.
For sure. So what I want to talk about today is why I don't like crypto as a long-term investment. And first off, I want to just disclose the fact I'm not talking about like if you're going to hold it for a year or two, or you're trying to trade it or get in and out and do like the Giovinazzi straddle or something like that. I'm not talking about that. In terms of the movement with which it has, I think it's a very fascinating trading product. And I'm actually doing some things myself in my trading laboratory, so to speak, right now with it. So I'm not talking about that. But in terms of should this be a new asset class like stocks, bonds, or whatever, absolutely not. I think it's not a good idea. And the reason I say that is because of the fact that I believe that 5 years from now, crypto is not going to be a thing anymore. I think that I don't believe that governments are going to allow it to become currency. Now, does that mean that people are going to stop doing it? No. But I think at some point, it's going to run out of momentum and it's going to run out of interest for where things are going with it. Can you buy a Tesla with Bitcoin? Yes, of course you can. And are NFL players being paid now in Bitcoin? Yes, they are. Some of them, or a couple of them are. And I personally think for the reasons like that crypto is going to fade. In that almost every time throughout history, whenever people who are out of the financial world have the next big thing, then it typically doesn't end well. In that if your cab driver is telling you about why you need to buy crypto, or if your barber is giving you stock tips, then usually those are signals that things are at the top. And so I guess something that is becoming, I think there's a few NFL players now are just electing to get paid 100% in cryptocurrency or in Bitcoin. And I think that's foolish. And the reason I think it's foolish is, number one, they can go out and buy the Bitcoin themselves. So why do they need to get paid?
Yeah, that point I don't understand. Just do the conversion yourself, right? Yeah, just however much you want to put in, you can. But yeah, why have them do it? That's just strange to me.
So to me, and you're still taxed on it. So what I'm thinking is maybe they're thinking, maybe they got some bad advice, and maybe they said, oh, you don't have to pay taxes if it's Bitcoin because you can only get taxed in dollars. IRS is going to tax your Bitcoins too. Don't worry. So that's one area. So the fact that the people that are doing this are doing things like that. Saturday Night Live with the DOGECOin, with Elon Musk. Whenever you're talking about currency, and I'm saying currency, I'm giving the air quotes right now, on Saturday Night Live, then that's not a good thing typically. So, and on top of that, I know my neighbor who actually got fired from working at Skippy's Euros is now making money trading crypto. And so when you're getting to that point in things, it usually isn't going to end well. Now, once again, the counterpoint to that would be, well, look at the movement with which it's had. It's gone from this to the 50, 60,000 level or whatever for Bitcoin. Of course. And I'm not going to deny that. It's had a great run, and it might still continue to go. But at some point, when things come up this quickly, they typically crash and burn. If you look at the way with which good stocks have come up, they've had to pay their dues. They've had their hard times. Let's look at some of the great stocks of today. Let's look at the one that I've talked about on this show a bajillion times, Apple. Apple, if you look at Apple in the 80s, they went through their struggles. In the late 90s, they went through a little bit of a resurgence, and then finally they changed the world about 10 years ago. And so with that, it's not something that happened overnight. Let's look at Amazon. Amazon, for years, they didn't make any money. They actually lost money all the time, but they kept building their foundation, wanting to become the biggest company that they are. Now, of course, Jeff Bezos, the richest man in the world, he's selling a lot of his shares now, but that's another story. But you have that. You have Facebook. If everyone remembers the IPO for Facebook, that was one where Facebook did not initially do so well, but eventually, as things went better for Facebook, they became a successful company and they started making money. The big debate was, can they monetize all these billions of users or whatever that they have? And so eventually they did. But my point is that these are solid businesses with a solid business model. Now, blockchain technology, there's something to be said for that. I think that can definitely be a great thing in the years to come. But cryptocurrencies and using this as currency, trying to take on the almighty dollar or the almighty loonie or the almighty British pound, the almighty euro, whatever the case may be, you're taking on a pretty big fight. And there's a lot of optimism that's happened very quickly, and there's really not reason for that. So are banks starting to use it? Yeah. You're starting to get, this is considered an asset class? Yes. But keep in mind, even back in all the bubbles that we've been through in our careers, we've had things that have started to look normal. We've had .com companies in our careers that we've seen or that have actually said, oh, it's a .com company, so it must be good, even though it doesn't have earnings. Oh, okay, big deal. It's going to go up. We've experienced that. We've had real estate booms to where, oh, you're a fry cook making $4 an hour. Great. Here's your mortgage for an $800,000 home. We saw how that ended. So my opinion is that Bitcoin and crypto is going to be this time frame's bubble. Now, when the bubble is going to pop, I do not know. And I'm not in the business of trying to predict when bubbles are going to pop. But if you're thinking that Bitcoin is a long-term investment and that that's the next big thing, it's going to be the next big bubble. I've said on this show a lot, and I'm taking heat from people for saying such a thing because crypto is such a popular thing now. But eventually I'm going to be right on this one. And I'm typically not this bold in my predictions, but this one I am going to be.
I hate to break it to you, Uncle Mike, but if Dogecoin was too stable for you listeners, now trending right now on Twitter is Shiba Inu coin, which is, of course, the dog that the Doge meme is based off of. So there's a new incarnation of Doge in the form of Shiba Inu coin. It's trending on Twitter, and Crypto.com and others are listing it now. You can get that for, looks like 0.0003227 cents. So get on out there while the getting is good. As we keep on rolling to our final segment, it's time to go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to Around the Block. Let's just pay off really quickly to a couple of our recent polls out here that we were just doing. Last week, we asked you folks, let's talk about your long-term optimism. Let's test your Uncle Mike-ness. Which of these four, if you had to buy a 10% out of the money call expiring at the end of the year, which of these four would you buy? The call on VIX, the S&P 500, Bitcoin, or crude oil, and Bitcoin taking it, but not by that much. 32.2% of you saying Bitcoin. So in spite of Uncle Mike's comments, going a little bit longer term out to the end of this year, at least with Bitcoin, even though Bitcoin underperforming of late compared to not just Doge, but ETH. My God, ETH on the rampage. We'll be talking about that a little bit later on the Crypto Rundown show with some great guests. SPX, number 2, 27.1%. Number 3, crude oil, 24.6%, bringing up the rear. VIX, no love for upside and vol, only 16.1%. Our question this week just went live before the show. Markets are hovering at all-time highs. Volatility is trending lower. What is your go-to strategy in this environment? I mean, if you don't see your favorite, of course, hit us up. Again, we can only give you 4 choices. We used to combine buying calls and buying puts, kind of buying that basic premium trade in one. But given the fact that buying calls is so popular these days, we kind of had to pull it out into its own. So we gave you 4 very basic choices right now. I expect a lot of you to hit us up with your fun alternate suggestions. But buying calls, buying puts, doing the old covered call or the old short put. I get it. Synthetically the same thing. But I know for a lot of you out there, practically they are not. So hit us up. Give us your suggestions, your thoughts right now. It looks like in the early blush, as I suspected, buying calls is leading the dance with 37.5%, followed by buying puts with exactly a third, 33.3%. The covered call, 29.2%, and no love at all for the short put, which is kind of fascinating. Oh, by the way, we had our listener who chimed in last week about demolition. He chimed in to say, Mark Sebastian has terrible taste in tag teams. He says, the Bushwhackers? ? Junk tag team. I will have to give him a hard time about it. The Road Warriors were great, but they were in the wrong organization. So a little bit of love for you, Uncle Mike. That came from Hybrid Duo. So since you were besmirched, Mr. Meatball, I will let you go first. First off, if you have thoughts about your beloved Bushwhackers getting besmirched, which, by the way, I'm kind of with them. They were silly, but not exactly my favorite tag team. And then, B, what are you watching for the rest of the week, sir?
No, I mean, they were nobody's favorite tag team, but they were funny to watch. That was really what it was. Yeah, what am I watching? I'm watching, you mentioned Ether. I'm keeping a very close eye on it. The interesting thing with Ether is that the all these NFTs that you hear about trade on the Ether network. That's why Ether is blowing up, because you need Ether to execute an NFT. So I'm watching Ether. I'm watching this market. We're at all-time highs. Are we going to see the NASDAQ continue to drop like this, or is it going to find a buyer? Right now, it doesn't look like it. All of the hot stocks are not hot anymore. And interestingly, I'm watching retail flow. Retail flow is plummeting. It is off what I think I read about 36% right now, and continue to drop. If that's the case, then you're going to want to look at some names like Charles Schwab as a potential put purchase, because they've been making money left over right on retail flow. And that was the main precipice behind their purchase of Thinkorswim or not Thinkorswim, of TD Ameritrade. And if that goes the way of the dodo, that's going to, if retail flow keeps falling, that's going to be problematic for a lot of people. And Mark, I did put out my own survey before Saturday Night Live. I said, what's Dogecoin going to do on Saturday Night Live? I put this out on Twitter after Saturday Night Live, and unilaterally, people thought Doge was going to explode higher.
Really? I thought the consensus was for sure it was just getting pumped up and then it's just going to plummet. I thought everyone thought that.
I totally thought that. But 44%, question was, after Elon Musk goes on SNL, what happens to Dogecoin? 44% responded way up, 28% responded pasted, and 28% responded little to no effect.
Wow.
So it just shows you where the tweetosphere is.
Still firmly in the crazy Dogecoin. They're probably the ones trending this Shiba Inu coin right now. You're going to get your hands on Shiba, easy for me to say, Shiba Inu coin? Hit us up. Let us know, listeners. Uncle Mike, I got a feeling you're not buying any Shiba Inu coin. But what are you watching for the rest of this week until our Thursday episode, sir?
Whenever I get done buying all my Shiba, Queen of Sheba, Shira from the Masters of the Universe coin or whatever that is.
I would totally buy a Shira coin. I'm just putting that out there. Get that out.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. No, I'm also watching silver. Silver's been very quietly moving up lately. It's not really doing much today, but just watching to see if we all of a sudden get a thief in the night rally with silver, like it tends to do. It'll just bore you to death, and then all of a sudden it'll rally out of nowhere. So just keeping my eye on that. And then just waiting with bated breath to see if people can start buying some tech. I think that would really give the market a jump start, and understood that we're moving into there's a lot of shifting going on in the market now that we appear to be reopening. So watching that and just seeing if we can get back moving on this 10-year note yield. If we do, if not, then I'll gladly sell more premium on it. So those are the things with which I'm watching, and I'm not long any Bitcoin right now, but I'll watch it. What the heck?
And he will be glued to his screens for Shiba Inu coin listeners. Speaking of being glued to crypto, we're going to rejigger some stuff in the studio in between episodes here for obvious reasons, listeners. And we'll be back in exactly an hour with some fun guests to break down everything going on. What the hell? ETH 4,000 this morning? Insanity unfolding in the world of crypto. We'll get to all of that in about exactly an hour. If you're listening after the fact, like many of you are, just hit next. Should be waiting for you there. Also should be in our app now. That has been reported to me as being fixed. So if you couldn't get the crypto rundown in the app, it should be there now. And before we go, let's go back around the horn. Uncle Mike, if folks want to give you hate on Twitter about your stance on crypto, which we did tweet you out, so I'm guessing you're going to get some of that. Where should they go? What should they do?
Follow me at Mike TOSAW. I welcome all the haters and the lovers for that matter. I'll also be tweeting out. It'll be on my blog later today with a written article about expanding on what I talked about. And if you are looking for a financial advisor who does work in the options space very frequently and who does not invest long-term in Bitcoin, hit me up at stcharleswealth.com.
stcharleswealth.com, the place to go. Mr. Meatball, if folks want to join you to vent their spleen on Dogecoin or Shiba Inu coin or any of that other fun stuff over there, where should they go? What should they do?
Yeah, go to optionpit.com. We're putting out pretty amazing content on a daily basis. Get on our email list and make sure you're following me on Twitter at OptionPit. And everybody watch this market. Should be a fun one.
Should be a fun one this week indeed. We got more fun in store for you, of course, here on the network. Exactly an hour for Crypto Rundown. Tomorrow, Interview Tuesday, hot and heavy coming at you again. Education Wednesday, fast and furious there as well. Back again on Thursday for episode 2 of the Option Block.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.